Hey everybody, George Whittam reporting for Whittam's World, Facebook Live edition. I've been looking for topics to talk about today, and I have a lot in the inbox. A lot of them are really specific things that, I could address them, but they would apply really to a very small number of people. So if I don't answer your question that you've sent in, that might be why, and it's really more suited for a direct consultation with me. But it's summertime, it's travel season, it's time to get on the road, and this question came in about a year ago, actually, last summer, from Chris Fulmer. And I just thought it'd be a fun thing to chat about for a little bit and just share my thoughts about the realistic expectations that you might have when it comes time to going on the road with a voiceover studio on wheels. So let's talk about what that really means. In Chris's question, he outlines that he is looking at putting together some kind of a portable studio. He has a project that's basically going around the country and recording people's voices. They wish to have representation from across the South, and travel is part of the equation. So they're going to be setting up in people's homes, but that's also, or they considered setting up people's homes, but they say that's also a great challenge. So what they want to do is just have a studio on wheels. Now, Chris, before I get into this conversation, you should definitely know that this is something that is being done by NPR, and it's called StoryCorps. And they pull this amazing Airstream trailer around the country, park it for a while, and then let people share their stories. So that's like a bar to meet. And I don't know what that project cost to build that trailer, but just a little bit of idea of what it takes to build a room soundproof that's air conditioned, that you can tow and have all the gear inside. Well, based on what it costs to build a studio, like on a foundation, and make it soundproof, it's probably going to be at least a $30,000 to $50,000 build out to soundproof a trailer and do it right. Okay, it's a pretty major expense to do it. Of course, a lot of that is the labor, and if you're going to do it all yourself, you can probably save some money. But in your case, it sounds like an Airstream trailer is probably not what you're looking at. You're looking at something much more compact, a 7x12 trailer, and taking that 7x12 trailer and air conditioning it and soundproofing it. So the issues you're dealing with here, your major issues and restrictions to me, from what I can tell here, probably are budget. And you're trying to do something like that for, it looks like $8,000, including the purchase of the trailer. And the biggest challenge is soundproofing the trailer enough so that it can actually be used to record voice. And a lot of that also has to depend on how much soundproofing is required. Are you going to have the trailer parked in a parking lot at a restaurant where there's lots of traffic? Is it going to be parked outside someone's country home way off of a main road? That's a huge part of it. And so that's going to determine the degree of isolation you have to build into this space. Isolation requires tremendous amounts of mass. Actually, rock bands that were touring the road in tour buses, and like a Prevost tour bus, were known for having like an ISO booth or a vocal booth or something built into their bus. And one of the common ways they used to build a room that was quiet enough to do that while they're on the road was to line all of the walls and floors of the booth with lead. Nowadays, that's just not going to be feasible. Probably getting the lead is way too expensive. It's way too toxic to deal with. So one of the materials that somewhat simulates what a lead sheet does is something called mass-loaded vinyl, or MLV. But it's all about a system. It takes an elaborate system of materials to get isolation to a degree that the sound of a helicopter, an aircraft, or a motorcycle going by aren't going to be mixed in with your voiceover recordings. That's very difficult to do. you've got two other issues too. Of course, not just keeping the noise from the outside from getting in, that's from the environment, but noise from two other issues. One of those is your air conditioning unit. There's quite a bit of work involved to cool a space quietly with an air conditioning system. So you have to build a ventilation box with baffles to allow the cool air to flow in, and another one to allow the stale air to flow out. Every cooling air conditioning system requires a recirculation of air of some kind, and so that's something that has to be built into the space as well. So you were saying you might leave a portion of the trailer walled off for basically the machinery, and that's the right idea. If you had like a 7x12 trailer, you could make the voiceover space inside roughly 6 feet by 8 feet, and then make the remaining space a machine room for equipment, the generator, and the air conditioning system. That could be feasible. I say 6x8 or 6x9 because a 7-foot wide trailer, you're going to have to build 6-inch thick walls at least to get a good deal of isolation. So that's going to leave behind a space for maybe a 6x9 or 6x8 space. 6x10, you don't want to deal with that. Once the room becomes too elongated, it doesn't really work well acoustically. So 6x8 or 6x9 would be a pretty nice size. So you could make the remaining portion of the trailer, maybe the back of the trailer, your machine room where your air conditioning unit is housed and everything else. You also mentioned powering the unit by solar, which, yeah, you did mention is too expensive. I would have to agree. Of course, you'd have to have the unit charge up in a very well lit area. You'd have to have a battery bank that the solar panel charges because solar isn't consistent. And so you'd have to have a pretty sizable battery bank on board, charging system, and solar panel. That system alone is going to be more than $8,000. The solar panels, battery system, charging system, inverter, all that. Okay, so then you mentioned a trailer. A Honda generator. I'm not up to speed on what a good generator or a quiet generator costs. He says $1,000. A Honda generator, I have heard some, I've been pretty impressed actually with how quiet they've managed to make the new generators these days. They are pretty darn quiet, I have to say. But they are still far from silent. And in the context of a voice recording studio, the only way you could use a generator like that, even as quiet as the quietest one is it would have to be taken out of the trailer and moved far away on a very long extension cord. Possibly around the corner behind another building, or something like that to create a sound baffle between the generator and the trailer. But that could theoretically work. You would definitely want to have some good power conditioning on board to clean up the power from the generator. So for that, you could use, I would probably use a UPS, one of those battery backup units you use for your computers. Get a nice big heavy-duty UPS that has line conditioning and is a true sine wave. These are things you want to look for: line conditioning, AVR, automatic voltage regulation, and true sine wave. Those are the things you want to see in an inverter, or actually a UPS, battery backup system. Uninterruptible power supply is what they call them. If you had one of those between the generator and your studio equipment, it would stabilize the power, scrub the power from voltage spikes and drops, dips and drops, and it would also keep the machine running if the generator runs out. It would at least keep your gear running for a little while until you shut everything off. So that could be a good combo, a generator and a big UPS. Expect to spend $200 to $300 on that UPS, or more, depending on how much battery capacity you want to have. So isolation, a big deal. Air conditioning and making it bearable in there is also a really big part of it. And powering it is also a big part of it. But I think at the end of the day, the powering portion may not be the hardest part. I think the end of the day is cooling it effectively and silently and getting the amount of isolation that you require to meet the needs of your recording production values. Also, don't use super sensitive condenser microphones. use more broadcast style dynamic mics. Have that mic very close proximity to the voice, and it will reject more background noise. That will help you get away with having a less than totally quiet recording studio. So that could work as well. Anyway, this is just some rambling thoughts, things that come to mind when I read about a really fun project like this. I mean, you know, I hope I don't come off as too negative. I mean, Chris, if you have the backing to do this right and you have the wherewithal, the place to build it, the time, the tools, and the talent, this could be a really, really cool project. It would be. I would love to have a voiceover booth on wheels I could pull around town. That would be so cool. Actually, come to think of it, there used to be a company here in LA called Out of There. And Out of There was a mobile recording booth on wheels as well that claimed to have an isolation rating of a 60 STC. That is pretty impressive for something that's portable, it can be pulled around from site to site. They were using it for doing like ADR recording on location on movie sets. So the voice actor, well, in that case, no voice actors usually. We're talking about celebrities and actors who are on set who now need to go re-record some lines. They don't have to now book them in to bring them into a studio at another time. They can finish the scene, and when they're done the scene and they go to set up a new scene, they can go to the trailer and re-record the dialogue as necessary, as deemed by the production sound department. And so that was the idea behind that. So, dude, don't let my possibly discouraging you because of cost and effort keep you from trying to do this. I think it could be really amazing. And if you have already done this, Chris, since you did ask me this back in August last year, I would sure love it if you shared your experiences, share your pictures, let us know how it went for you. And if you haven't done it yet, maybe this video will be helpful to you, possibly. Or maybe discourage you. I don't know. But it's a worthy project to be a lot of fun. So thanks for watching, everybody. This is George Whittam for Whittam's World, a little Facebook Live edition. And if you have any questions for us, as always, send it into Whittam's World, all one word, Whittam's World, at edgestudio.com. And I would love to address it on a future episode. And it would be a lot of fun. And if you have any questions that are technology related, or if you really just want to get one-on-one help, or maybe have some audio processing set up for you, maybe help you decide what equipment to use, or learn how to set up the gear you already have properly, all that stuff I do for you at edgestudiotechnology.com. Thanks again for watching. This is George Whittam reporting for Whittam's World. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.